Nonprofit and philanthropic leaders devote their lives to the service of others, but sometimes they need a little help. Kristine Michie has been deep in the work and the play of helping changemakers grow their impact for decades. So whether you're ladling soup at a local shelter or attending a UN peace conference, you need to find the balance between the heavy work and a light touch so you don't burn out. And Kristine believes play is at the center of that. Welcome to the PlayFull Podcast, bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world.
Everybody, welcome back to the PlayFull Podcast. We are bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world. And I have a local hero here, a friend of mine from here in the Southern California area, San Diego area, Shawn McClondon, who is the founder of the Sister Cities Project, and someone I've gotten to be in community with several times as he, and this is part of our how-to series, challenges us, these folks here in San Diego, but you're going to hear about how you can do this in your town too, how to talk about race and how to bridge divides, geographic, class, racial, etc. He's doing that work of the moment on a block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood basis, and it's really powerful. Shawn, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kristine. I'm just excited, of course, as you know, doing the work that I do. I'm always just excited to be able to have this conversation and to just be able to get the word, spread the word, and get the news out there. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm very excited about the conversation.
All right. Yes, sir. So some of you might be familiar with Sister Cities International, which is indeed an international nonprofit organization that matches up cities with other cities and says, hey, they're sisters, right? They're paired. So I wish I remembered what San Diego's were, but like San Diego and Singapore or something like that, for example. There's something similar in this concept, which is bringing neighborhoods within a city together. Mm-hmm. Shawn, can you talk a little bit about the initiation, inspiration for this? And if I'm remembering correctly, there were a lot of strangers that you talked to and a lot of cups of coffee that you had. Talk about how you got this idea, and we'll get into what's going on. But tell a little bit about its origin story.
Yeah, well, I want to say you talked about Sister Cities International, and I think before I get into the actual story, one of the things that's important kind of to note is that was one of the things that hit me earlier on, because I had heard of Sister Cities International. I actually did a program with them, with a nonprofit that I had before Sister Cities Project. And I just thought how interesting it was that we had this kind of partnership between these other countries. Yeah, we weren't doing a lot when it came to communities, right, that were 20 minutes away, like a Carlsbad and Southeast San Diego, or, whatever it was, right? So that was something that dawned on me. But so the origin story of this for me was, so I was actually, like I said, I had another nonprofit. It was called Youth Campaigns. It was a digital marketing program for underserved youth. And I ran that program from 2014 to 2017. And I took a hiatus. And during that hiatus, I was trying to figure out the program I did was very challenging. There was a lot of moving pieces. So we took a hiatus so that we could try to make it more effective as a program and learn how to raise money. And while we were taking that hiatus, COVID hit. So now, of course, as most of us, I'm sitting at home with a lot of time on my hands. And I did a lot of self-reflecting, and I don't want to downplay this. I did during COVID. I think I took the time to really do a lot of reflecting on myself, my life, what I wanted to do, who I was. And Sister Cities Project kind of came to me. It was right after George Floyd, 2020 in May, and that had just happened. And so I'm sitting thinking about what can I do, because I've always been a person who is wanted to give back and wanted to be a part of, be a part of the fight. And so sitting down thinking about it, and I think at some point I'm watching this show that was a panel discussion of all the Black leaders across the country. And a woman asked a very poignant question. She goes, if you have a friend that's in need, what do you do? And everyone on the panel says, well, you help them. And then she says, well, if there's a person over there that's in need, what do you do? And of course, the panel goes, well, you don't know them, so you don't help them. And that hit me, as well as George Floyd. The two things kind of hit me together, as how we decide to help people, right? If we don't know people, we tend to not think that we're going to help or want to help, but the people that we know, we tend to help. The people we understand, we tend to help, right? So that's when I thought of this idea. It was rolling around in my head. So the first thing I did was I said, okay, well, I am going to put a call out. I was actually a part of this Facebook group called, it was Residents of Solana Beach. I was living in Solana Beach at the time. North County community, for those of you that know San Diego, very affluent North County community. On Residents of Solana Beach, I just put out a post. I said, because it was right after George Floyd, and I said, hey, if anyone wants to get to know someone who's Black, talk to someone who's Black, talk about the situation, or even become friends with someone who's Black, here's my number, here's my email address, please contact me. And for the next 3 weeks, I was totally booked up, having conversations, having coffee, basically my local coffee, Starbucks coffee down the street. I was there every single day, 3 and 4 meetings a day. So what was great about it was I met some of my best friends through these meetings, but also it confirmed what I was thinking, which was, there are so many misconceptions and misunderstandings when it comes to people that live in very different communities. As I said, I'm here in Solana Beach talking to people in this affluent community. And me, myself, I'm from an underserved community in Long Beach. And I also had a nonprofit where our program was in Southeast San Diego, an underserved community here in San Diego. So it was like I was able to, see and talk to these individuals and see the misconceptions. And these were people that were very, people that meant well, right? Very educated people. It's just that if you don't understand and you don't know, then there are some gaps, right? And so that's kind of how it started. As soon as that happened, that confirmation gave me the idea to say, hey, well, I'm going to start something called Sister Cities Project. And what we're going to do is we're going to partner very affluent communities with very underserved communities, with a simple idea of putting these two communities together, with the idea that they can talk, communicate in different areas and understand one another better. Because going back to what the woman in the panel said, if they understand each other better, I think they'd be more apt to help, more willing to help, and support one another through that process. So that's why I started the nonprofit.
I love it. I remember now. I've heard that story, and I appreciated being reminded of parts of it that I didn't recall. I'm thinking that there's also a phenomena where if the people that need the help are so far away, I won't encounter them, and I don't feel any culpability or blame or responsibility. I might send money around the world somewhere where some people need some help. But you're telling me that you're giving me an opportunity, but also a challenge to get to know people close by with whom I could truly be, in community, in conversation, potentially friends with, right? And you and I have talked before, and I'm curious right now for myself. I'm with people of color a lot through the work I get to do, and I'm an ally. And I think I said to you, what I'm curious about is, I don't think that takes a lot of courage for me. I can't even get a little atta girl, like, isn't that great that Kristine is showing up like that? But what about what courage might I need to broach some of these conversations with my neighbors and in white circles and say, hey, what are you all doing? What might we all do? And how could we create community? And how could we reach out to other communities in San Diego? Folks, I'm sure wherever you live, you've got the same dynamic. We're talking about Solana Beach and Carlsbad, two North County San Diego cities where we live. And there's other communities literally, 10 and 20 minutes away that are really, really different. What's it been like, Shawn, to invite people to travel the 20 minutes in distance, which is, immeasurable perhaps in terms of life experience different. What's that been like to encourage people to do it, to challenge people to do it, and take them on that journey?
Yeah, well, I think there is the first thing is to understand that there there is much more of a there's much more of a misunderstanding than we think.
Mm.
I think most people assume that because, let's just say we're all human, right? Or we are all, we all do a lot of the same things that there's no way that, I am misunderstanding or think that someone
Oh,
else has a different life than me. It can't be that much different, right? I think we have a tendency to do that, number one, and that's what I found out through these discussions.
mhm.
But also, I think we're in a time and space where I believe that there are some things that just need to be done now, right? Um, to me, courage is a big theme in my life, right? And you talked about that. And I'll tell you a quick story that I think embodies this in a way. Right after that, the George Floyd incident, I'm at a Starbucks, and this is the Starbucks that I went to a lot, well, 9 to 5. I was there 9 to 5 for 15 years. So, but I'm there every day. I know some people, and the oddest thing happened to me during George Floyd. I'm in line, and I get to the front, and there's this white couple standing there, and they stopped so that they could buy my coffee, right? So they turn to me and they say, "Hey, can we buy your coffee?" Right? And I said, and me, I'm like, yeah, right? Like, yeah, yeah, hey, you
Thank
can
you.
have my coffee. And there was actually a woman, a black woman behind me, which is very rare in Solana Beach. Just so happens to be a black woman standing behind me. And I just kind of glanced over because I noticed the dynamic happening.
Yeah.
And she kind of had a scoff on her face, right? Kind of, to me, it read, why are you like that? That's a very condescending,
Mhm.
right? Type of thing. But I thought about that later. Now I think about this story a lot because what I saw in that is that there's a white couple that decided they needed to do something,
Mhm.
right? It wasn't a huge thing. It wasn't, taking on the world. It wasn't, but it was, they said, we're going to have the courage to do something.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at. I kind of look at where we're at in our space and time, in our politics and in the world and in our society. And it is, to me, I feel like one day I woke up, and for all the good that's been done, it has not been enough.
Mhm.
So we need to start thinking about what it means to actually do enough that we can change, right, what's
Yeah.
going on. And I think someone saying to themselves, I'm going to have the courage to
Mhm.
speak to someone different, to
Mhm.
get outside of my bubble,
Yeah.
to do something that's very hard. I think that's where we're at. And that's what Sister Cities Project tries to do.
Yeah.
We understand that that's very hard for people to maybe, if they do want to do it, what do I do that's going to
Mhm.
make an impact,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's what we do very well, is try to give people at things that they can do
Yeah.
that are going to impact someone else's lives. So I think that's what's very important right now.
Yeah, and Shawn, you have been my experience with the project and with the activities that I've participated in. Um, you're navigating and negotiating this dynamic where the helpers are coming into town, and how are they helping, and how not to create that condescending,
Right.
pejorative handout vibe, and really just create opportunities for people to get to know each other. And I love what you pointed out, that thing, like, I think it's a common thing that, well, white people will say, well, I'm colorblind, or I don't even see race. And I think George Floyd's legacy, part of his martyrdom to the cause, is, I'll say, as a progressive white person, ahas I've had that I didn't, I'll guess what, I didn't know I needed them. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And my understanding about the white perspective of my entire lived experience, like a fish in water, they say, right? Like, I don't even notice that everything is kind of white centered, because I just thought that's quote unquote how it was. But
Right.
it's how it is and it serves my group,
Right.
right? How are you and I bet there's been some poignant moments where some of the people that are signing up for the activities and going down to a different part of town to connect and have community with others different from themselves. Like, tell me about some of the dynamics that have happened there, and how you keep lifting everybody up to
Right.
keep the conversations going.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
Let's start there. But I think one of the most like one of our first early on, so we started this and it was COVID. It was during COVID. And so we would actually meet one of the one I'm speaking about specifically. We met at the library in Encinitas.
Okay.
Uh, no, this was before that one. Somewhere in Solana Beach. I'm drawing a blank on it, but we met, basically a group of us met in Solana Beach. We drove down to Southeast San Diego and we met some community members at a park in Southeast San Diego, sat down in the park. And of course, at this point, you had to sit 6 feet 6 feet from each
Yeah.
other. So we sat in a big circle and we had, we always try to do a center Black voices. So we had an educator speak on some of the topics, and we just asked questions about race and equity and different things like that. And it was so interesting afterwards that a few of the white attendees, I heard one of them go, "Wow, this neighborhood is not that bad."
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it was
Yeah.
just, it was like cringeworthy, but at the same time, understanding the impact of that, right? Meaning that, like, we're sitting in Southeast San Diego, where to them, the bubble of Solana Beach, supposedly this is a really bad neighborhood, right? And we were able to sit in the park, nothing happens, there's no, whatever they think is going to happen. And I think that was very telling for me. And this was like our second one pop,
Yeah.
probably,
Yeah.
where a person really still thinks that, like I said, there's this misconception of what it's
Yes.
supposed to be like.
Yeah.
I also think another point with that is that, because you made the reference about trying to, um, you know, I think what I'm trying to get people to understand is that, Solana Beach, having lived in Solana Beach, affluent community, it's a bubble, right? Like you said, I think I grew up in Long Beach, very underserved community. And I remember thinking to myself at some point, after I lived in Solana Beach for 20 something years, thinking to myself at some point how far, right, my mind had
Mm.
taken me
Mm.
from what I remember, right, as a person, as growing up. Like, I didn't even, I had actually forgot, right?
Yes.
Because I'm in this community where
Mhm.
things are a certain way. So I think it's the challenge has been to get people to understand that, they have to get out of their bubble. You have to go see something different, but you have to make an effort to do it.
Yeah.
It's not just going to happen.
Well, and Shawn, something I know that's sort of in the literature, a lot of, the books that came out, be anti-racist and things like that, that came out after George Floyd's murder, when there was a lot of conversation, right, about stuff that hadn't been talked about before, and now it's getting kind of put back in the closet, and we're trying to keep pulling it back out. But I'm worried sometimes about white people needing the Black people to do the work for us.
Mhm.
Like, can you explain to me how I can be a better white person? I don't want to do that. I don't want to ask that, but I feel like sometimes that's also a little bit in the mix.
Right.
Anything to share on that?
Well, I
Or
the
am I just doing that again?
no, I know. What are you doing? No. Well, see, I have a whole different philosophy on that.
Mm.
And I think this is where I believe, for example, it's kind of like saying, okay, well, if I am a white person who wants to know what to do, who's going to tell me,
Mm.
right? And the question becomes and here's the thing, I get it as a Black person, I get it. like we are tired, right? We are tired of having to be the person to tell you what to do or how to do it or try to bring you along. Believe me, everyone has their right to kind of be wherever they are, right, on this spectrum. But I believe that if it's not going to be a Black person, who is it going to be,
Mm.
right? So I believe that's kind of my space, right?
Yeah.
I started Sister Cities Project as this thing there. I want to be that. I want to be able to have a conversation and provide opportunities for, for white people who are, wanting to take that step.
Yeah.
One of the things early on we talked about was, and I got this from a Facebook post. I saw this Facebook post where it was just a graph, and on one end of the graph was anti-racist, and on the other end of the graph was racist. And then there was a line in the middle, and it just had a bunch of dots all over the graph,
Uh,
right? And then it had a line from racist to anti-racist. And the point they were making with the graph is that it doesn't matter where you're at on that graph. Like, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you're moving in the direction of anti-racist, right? And so, like for me, I have encountered people everywhere on that graph. And I'll tell you one of the things that I talk to Black people about, which is this thing of, okay, if you encounter a person on their journey closer to the racist end of it, and they take a step, say that step is buying you coffee in the Starbucks, and they take that step, what Black people have tended to do is shout that person down, right? So, but once you shout that person down, like we know in arguments, that closes that person off. So the person that was trying to take a step, even though that step, like for example, it makes more sense if it's like a person saying something to a Black person that is that offends that Black person. But it's a question, it's an authentic question of them trying to understand and trying to take a step. We as Black people will tend to get upset and shout that person down.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is that person now has decided they're no longer going to do that again.
Right.
We have stopped that journey, right? And I think that's one of the things we have tended to do as Black people.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is start inviting more people into that. And that's what we do again at Sister Cities Project, is invite everyone to take a step.
Yeah.
No matter what that step is, take a step and keep taking steps until, again, things change,
I
right?
love it. So I know you have ice cream close by that is
I do.
melting, or at least I know you like it a little soft. Okay, what did you choose?
Well, I think when you asked, I chose something with caramel. Anything with caramel to me is good. Caramel and vanilla, anything. So I'm all about it. And here's the thing. Your show is so great. I don't usually eat ice cream, but I'm eating it today just for you.
Nice. And I'm the opposite. And my story is, look, and you can see, folks, look how deep my spoon is into my pint. So what does that tell you? Last night, my husband and I were having ice cream on the couch, and I was like, oh, that's my last carton. Stop eating it. I need it for tomorrow for the podcast. And so I just have a little bit of what's left at the bottom of this Taharka Brothers Mint Flicks and Chills.
Wow.
Okay, and you've got some Ben& Jerry's, right?
Yes, I do. And it's delicious. And I just made a mess on myself.
I told you, it breaks my heart when I see melted ice cream. But
well, you know what? I didn't know it was this melted. And so it kind of just spilled all over me, but no one can see it because it's
I had a guest, I can't remember who this was now. She had taken it and put it in a blender and turned it into a shake. And she just had it next to her with a straw, which I thought was brilliant. All right. So I don't want to go too far from what we were talking about, but I want to use the ice cream eating part as when I ask you, what's the scoop on how you came to care? What makes Shawn like this, that you decided to do this, and that when you see an injustice or an opportunity, you want to dive in?
So my mother, I reference my mom a lot because my mom died when I was 13. But when I was growing up, my mom was the woman who, like, when people had issues and problems, they came to her. Like, I spent a lot of time because I am 10 years younger than my next
Mm,
sibling.
yeah.
So he's 10 years older. And so I kind of was an only child.
Mm,
And so I'm at home. My brother's actually in college, and I'm growing up with my mom. And I watched her in the living room with neighbors that came over, and she would talk to them. I watched her. She was a kindergarten teacher.
mm,
I was actually in her class as a kindergartner, and I watched her at work, talk to the ladies that were there about their problems. And my mom was the nicest woman. And I think without her ever saying anything, I kind of got this. I knew I was always going to be someone who helped other people.
yeah.
Um, so when she died, it didn't happen right away, but my nonprofit and what I do now, the work I do now is to honor her. So it's very important to me.
Yes.
And it's more than just this it's more than just a business,
Yeah.
for me. So that's why, and I think that's important.
Yes.
So
Shawn, what was her name?
Astrid.
Astrid?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We were honoring her. Did she like ice cream?
She loved ice cream.
Did she have a favorite?
I don't remember.
Yep.
But yes, my mom loved ice cream, so she would love this right now.
Oh man, I did see that it's still good even when it's melted, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe when you put it back in the freezer for later too. All right, let's fill in some of the blanks for the audience about the model, because I believe that you are very interested in sharing this model,
Right.
continuing to iterate it and perfect it here in San Diego, but because it's going to be an offering, it is an offering to the country, to the world. So tell us more about the model. What kind of how-tos should people be jotting down if they take notes while they're listening? I know you put a lot of this in your book, so I want to make sure we talk about that as well. But tell us a little bit about how would you start something like this? What are the how-tos that you've learned?
Well, the easiest thing to do is I would say, if I were to just talk about it practically and
Yeah.
say what the easiest thing to do is, what we started with is just conversation, right?
Yeah.
So, identifying two communities that are very different
Mm-hmm.
and putting people in the same room and having an honest conversation about race and equity and equality and different things like that. I think that's where it starts, right? That's the easiest thing to do, and that's something we should be doing everywhere, right?
Right.
That's everywhere in America.
Shawn, if somebody doesn't know anybody from that neighborhood, as a way to phrase it, how does, and I'll say that's the white person who's
Mhm.
like, okay, I'd like to get this started. Where should they show up, and how should they show up to inquire about, would anybody like to have a conversation like this?
Well, that's a good question. And I think the reason I say it that way is because I think different communities, right? It's
Mm,
going to be different depending on where you're at, what community. We started with just organizations, right? Like we somewhat started by putting different types of organizations together. So, I would say for anyone, whether it be, once you've identified a community, call a church, right?
mm-hmm,
Call the local YMCA,
mm-hmm.
right? Any of
Maybe
those,
the chamber?
maybe the chamber, any
Uh-huh.
any bigger bodies in those communities, right? That have a network of people that
Yeah,
you could draw from. And then I think on the other end of the person who's calling, they have to be able to do the same thing on their end, right?
yeah.
Contact someone in their community, some entity in their community that they can also draw from that network as well.
Nice. I like it. Okay. So, and you're right, you're kind of tapping into a infrastructure, so to speak, that is made up of, guess what? People. And you're saying, I've got this idea. Now, Shawn, would someone reference, or should they reference, modeled after something called Sister Cities Project in San Diego, California? Look at the website and you'll see what I'm talking about, what this thing is.
Well, so the book that I wrote,
Yeah.
or released recently is actually it has all the steps in the book. It's called Understanding Each Other, the Blueprint for a New America. And the reason it's the blueprint for a new America is because it actually is the blueprint for Sister Cities Project.
Right.
So for anyone that wants to do this in their community or in communities near them, buy the book.
Yeah.
It's on Amazon. It's on Apple Books. Buy the book, and I think it, like I said, it literally gives you a checklist. It gives you, what you're doing month one, month two, month three. It really breaks it down for you, so you could do this in your own community. And that's something that I wanted to do because I don't believe in this thing of like that information should be held.
Mm.
Right now, would we love to be a part of all of these and ensure that they are being implemented in the way that we feel like Sister Cities Project should do it? Yes, of course. We'd love for people to contact us and start there, and we can support them. Because what we would love to do is that's our goal, is to move this across the United States and be able to support people and organizations that want to help do this financially and structurally and with infrastructure. One of the things that we're doing right now is that we're in the that I think is very exciting, is that we're creating a system, an impact system, which will allow people to basically track activity across the ecosystem and across the network. So if you're a part of Sister Cities Project, we're going to have this system where every individual that comes into the system is asked to do certain things. And when they're asked to do something, we're tracking and following up what the impact is of that at the other end.
Great.
So that's kind of our big idea as far as how to tie all these things together and how to tie the different Sister Cities Project entities across the United States together.
And it sounds like for philanthropists that are listening who are intrigued by this, everything from buying a bunch of these books and making sure you're handing them out, to contacting Shawn, to supporting with a donation. The Sister Cities Project is a 501c3 organization. And then calling Shawn, wherever you are, and if you're thinking this is intriguing, and asking him some questions about it. I'm really excited. I've been having so many conversations. Seems like as the problems get bigger, the solutions get more local. And I've been having lots of conversations with folks about everything from the power and importance of local news to this idea of literally having democracy dinners. Like, who do you want to have dinner with together before the election this November? Which is just a way to say, like, what I was just talking to some folks at Everyday Democracy, which is a great connection I'd love to make for you if you don't know them already. And she says, we're going to do an ice cream social in New York during Climate Week. And she said, conversations are democracy. Like, the more conversations, the more democracy is happening. Right. So she's like, and I was asking her about like prompts and things like she wants to make sure we're going to use when we're having these, like, eating ice cream and people talking. She goes, sure, I'll share some prompts, but I just want people talking. Right. And I wonder, Shawn, if that resonates with you.
Totally. I'm happy you asked that question, because I think I'm going to say something that might be a little bit controversial, but it's okay. Voting. See, I think yes, I do understand that, a lot of people put a lot of weight on voting, right? But I don't think it's enough. I think that, I think what we've seen, especially in the Black community, is that a lot of the voting has created policies that has created the system that still oppresses us. So, this thing about voting is great, but I think I believe in what Sister Cities Project and reason I started this believe is exactly what you just said. There's and I love my stories, but one of the things I thought about early on was, the thing is this: it's like, if you have a judge that's sitting on a bench, right, that has no Black friends or knows no people of color, and a Black man walks into his courtroom, the way he looks at that person is going to be very different than a person that has had
Yeah.
conversations and knows people of
Yes.
color and
Yes.
black people and have them in their life, right?
Yeah.
That outcome is going to be very different.
Yeah.
So that's where we need to get to, but we can't get there unless we're having conversations. I believe that the real change for America is conversation,
Yeah.
right? We are moving in this we are moving away from each other.
Yes.
We're moving away from each other, number one. We're too afraid to have the uncomfortable conversation. Everything about our world makes us comfortable to what music we want to listen to, what we want to get in our feed. So it's dividing us in this way where we just don't want to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
So to me, it's like we need to reverse that and we need to start getting into places and start with conversations that make us uncomfortable and talk about these things with other people that are different.
Yeah.
That's where it starts. Like, and I think, what we in the nonprofit space for us, for Sister Cities Project specifically, I think what happens is that people hear us say that we believe that conversation is important and they scoff at it, right?
Mm.
And like people that give money don't want to give money to conversation.
Right.
They don't want to give money. That's like too simple. That's too simplistic.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
no organization can make change by having conversations. But I actually think that's part of the problem. I
Yes.
think we need to start investing in conversation and putting people together. And that's one of my pet peeves because I feel like if I could just shout at the top of my lungs about what needs to happen in America, I would say we need to get all the money we can to have more conversations. If I could have a conversation every day across the United States, every hour of the day, that's what we be doing
Yeah.
because that's what needs to happen. So
Yeah.
I'm happy you said that because I really wanted to get that out. I've been wanting to get that out for a long time.
I love it. It is super resonant. And I know also, Shawn, that part of your model includes doing business together and making sure that there's opportunities for us to engage commercially
Right.
across these perceived divisions and distances. Talk about how important that is in your model.
Yeah, well, so there are four pieces to our model. There is workforce development, so creating jobs for young people. There is entrepreneurship. We actually have a private online community for Black women entrepreneurs. There is community connections, which is actually our where we have our discussion forums, and then there is the Equitable Schools Fund, which is trying to bridge the gap in funding between affluent community schools and schools in underserved communities.
Yeah.
So to us, that creates an ecosystem.
Yeah.
But I think going back to what, specifically what you asked, I think there's this like what we notice is that there's one big thing that happens when you talk about, let's just say, an affluent community, right? And business. And we've seen it like we could many stories where the networks are different,
Mm.
right? So when you have like a business owner who lives in an underserved community, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean they're not working as hard, they're not as smart, anything like that. What happens a lot of times is just that they don't have the network,
Mhm.
right? To get that contract, to get that, to get introduced to that person that can help them to the next level. Whereas, like when I was living in Solana Beach, the person next to me, right, has a different network,
Yeah.
has a network that is filled with people with, with higher net incomes, right? So that's what we saw early on is just like making small introductions to people
Yeah.
in a different network actually made a big difference. So I think that, yes, so business, I think that's what is kind of important when it comes to these different communities is like being able to be introduced and learn new information. I also think there is this another controversial thing. Do I have to say that before I say it?
No.
I'm just I'm just I'm just joking. Um, I think there's this thing that because we are different, because I believe, white people, black people, underserved, affluent, there are things we can both learn from each other.
Mhm.
And I think if you sit down long enough to just understand and be open to that, I think you grow, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's part of it too.
Well, and back to the early part of the conversation about helping, right? And that we help people that we know. I also think fast forwarding, we do business with people we know. So all of this, everything is about becoming known,
Right.
becoming together people we know and knowing each other.
Yeah.
I'm got a vision, Shawn, for us to do a watch party when this episode comes out, because we publish on YouTube as well as all the podcast platforms. And maybe we find an ice cream shop down in Southeast or one of the communities where you're working, and we put a laptop up or roll a TV in, and we eat ice cream and we watch the episode, and we use that as another chance for people to get together. Yeah. And I would love, and we're going to put in the show notes about your book. Really, folks, this is how-to series. This is how to talk about race, how to start bridging and connecting communities where you live, give people the chance to take advantage of that proximity. Mm-hmm. That, man, I know that, especially in Southern California, freeways can take away all sense of proximity, right? Yeah. And you just whiz by neighborhoods that you never see. Get off, right? Get off and go into a different neighborhood. And I know that's something that you are giving people a chance to do and encouraging. Mm-hmm. What would be a call to action that you want to leave the audience with?
I think at this point, we are, as Sister Cities Project, I think, like I said, we are actually, we are moving, let's just say we are moving our audience, not moving, but we are focusing right now. We are actually raising $300,000. It's our next day campaign. Real quickly, July 4th, obviously is Independence Day. Frederick Douglass was asked to give a speech, and I forget the year, 18 something, I forget the exact year, was asked to give a speech on Independence Day, July 4th, about Independence Day, and he decided that he wanted to give it on July 5th. And the reason he gave it on July 5th is because he was making a point about how for Black people, that promise is still unfulfilled. Yeah. So he did it on July 5th and gave that speech. Yeah. So we decided to run a campaign starting on July 4th, that is the day after, that says we're raising money because that promise is still unfulfilled to this day. So we are trying to raise $300,000. The campaign ends October 2nd. So that's something you can find actually on our homepage. There's a link to the actual fundraising campaign, and are raising money. And here's the thing. I know a lot of people, they get tired of, right, every nonprofit's raising money. I think if I just explain that we're an organization that, sure, we're another nonprofit organization, but we are an organization that, if you believe in equity and if you believe in action, I think we're raising money to try to do more in that area, right? We believe we have a solution. So we are trying to be the organization that's able to step out front, take responsibility, take accountability for being the organization that's out front and tackling equity and racism in the way that it should be tackled. So,
and what if it was as simple as conversation? And I would say that we've tried a lot of other things. I don't think we're so happy with the state of things. So why not invest in conversation, both personally, each of us taking that risky moment to have a conversation we might not have had, and then supporting organizations like yours that are giving people the tools and the structure to do that in ways that are facilitated, supported, et cetera. Well, I will definitely be at, you and I have a bunch of mutual friends who are involved, and I will stay on the calendar. And I would, if it could be really fun to do a watch party of the podcast, and let you have some of the love that I know people feel for you in the room.
I think we should do that for sure.
Well, thank you so much. I am just grateful for the work you're doing, and you being a part of the PlayFull family. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to the PlayFull Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review it on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know of a leader or organization that's doing good in the world and you'd love to help us help them amplify their message, I would love to have them on the show. Go to the show notes and click there, or go to impactfulinc.com/contact. And that's impactful with 2 L's, inc.com/contact. And let us know who you're thinking about. Can't wait to see you next time.